Just what are we facing here?
A relic of the old world.
If you ever flirted with the idea of this sexy demon Form Infernalist in the past, or you probably hit one or two walls. You either got hesitant and never took this node on the ascendancy, or you indeed took it, but then kept killing yourself over and over until you decided the whole thing was a meme and quickly rolled a safer character. But you're not alone in this, my brother. Demon Form is actually sitting at a 0.4% peak rate this season at the time of this recording, not because it's weak, but because almost nobody gets past the suicide wall. So by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what kills you the longer you stay in demon form, why the wall to climb is not where you think it is, and how to build the most powerful witch this game has to offer that gets stronger every second she stays alive. Now enough with the chit chat, and let's go dissect what makes this plague mummy melt everything around her. In case you never played Demon Form before, this is one of the very first nodes you take on the Infernalist ascendancy, which literally turns you into a demon while handing you one Demonflame stack every second you stay transformed, and every single one of those stacks hands you 3% more spell damage. And I'm not talking about increased damage, bruh. This is a more damage multiplier stacking on top of everything else. Now at base, Demon Form caps you at 10 Demonflame stacks, but the Master Darkness node is the ascendancy point that rips the cap off and lets you ramp up as many stacks as you can sustain. This means at about 200 Demonflame stacks, you casually sitting at around 600% more spell damage, which makes any of your spells deal 7 times more damage than if you had no stacks. And before anyone asks, no, this insane damage multiplier is not given to you freely. See, every stack of Demonflame you gain quietly charges you some rent in the form of life lost per second, and the more stacks you gain, the faster your life gets sucked out of you. So at 50 stacks, you bleeding roughly 900 life per second. At 100, about 1800. At 200 stacks, you are hemorrhaging 3700 life per second while you stand there, and when you manage to get over 300, well, you get the picture. Now mind you, this life loss is not something you can simply prevent with any amount of armor, evasion, block, deflect, energy shield and so on. Because the life lost from Demonflame walks straight past every defense layer like they were not even in the room, chief, which leaves you exactly one option. If nothing you own can block your life loss, you have to put that life right back on that bar faster than Demonflame can strip it off. And the way our plague mummy does this is by setting herself on fire. Now that you know what Demon Form is in a nutshell, there is another very important ascendancy node you need to know about before we go any further. Pyromantic Pact. This is one of the craziest nodes in the game that does something no other ascendancy in the game does. It straight up deletes your mana pool and replaces it with Infernal Flame. And instead of spending that resource like you normally would with mana, casting a skill actually fills it. Then when that bar is completely filled, you eat your own maximum life and maximum energy shield as fire damage right into the face. And on my character right now, that's over 12,000 fire hit roasting my ass constantly. Well, before my fire resistance softens that hit of course, which lowers it down to about 3,000. And on any other ascendancy, that sounds completely retarded, I know. But that is only until you meet your best friend, Recoup. See, Recoup recovers a portion of the damage you take over 8 seconds at base. So a portion of that fire hit we eat in 24/7 is scooped up by Recoup and handed back to us as a recovery over the next few seconds. And once again, on every other character in the game, Recoup is that defensive stack you probably never even looked at, and if you ever roll on the piece of gear you crafting, you probably thought it was trash. On Plague Mummy though, oh baby, that is the only way you get to stay alive. Then Sacrosanctum shows up and completes the whole setup. This chest piece by itself hands you up to 20% of the damage you take back as life. It can also roll with a life recoup corrupted mod, which in my case, gives me another 15% damage recouped as life, and as if that wasn't all, that damage recouped as life is also recouped as energy shield. Do you even know what that means, bro? Come here for a second. You cast, your Infernal Flame fails, it overflows and lights you up, whatever is left gets converted into life recoup that pays your Demonflame rent, and then Sacrosanctum quietly copies that exact same recovery onto your energy shield, which is the pool that has been soaking up everything the monsters have been throwing at you the entire time. But that loop only works as long as you keep cycling. You get that, right? Because in case you forgot what I told you a few minutes ago, your rent goes up every single second you stand there costing your life, like literally. So your payment has to keep up pace with it. And for the longest time, mine wasn't even close, which was getting my chips clapped. Now if that recoup loop was as simple as I made it sound, you would think this build basically plays itself, right? That is exactly what I thought too. And I kept dropping at around 170 Demonflame stacks with absolutely nothing kicking my ass. I had recoup on every single piece of gear you could think about, man. My head, my chest, my amulet, my passive tree, my jewels, whew, you name it. But as soon as I walked into a map, I would genuinely be having a lovely time watching my stack counter tick up like a slot machine, until all of a sudden, I would find myself face down reading a death recap that has nothing in it. It was so annoying, dude. I couldn't even take a fully juiced T15 map without burning revives on a character that on paper was the strongest thing I ever built. So I did exactly what you do when you cannot work out what killed you. I went to the morgue and dissected my Plague Mummy's body. 3 suspects I found, and not a single one of them looked like a murder weapon, bro. My staff was rolling maximum mana, which on a caster is about as normal as breathing. One of my rings had mana efficiency on it, which I didn't even realize before my dojo mate Jacob pointed it out. Shout out to you, bruh. And then way back in the campaign, I remember taking the maximum mana boon from the Halls of the Dead in Act 4, cause hey, permanent start, right? Don't mind if I do. All 3 things are completely innocent on their own, but together, they had me sitting at almost 900 maximum mana. And here's the thing about the Infernal Flame bar that I never once thought about until that moment. That bar is actually twice your maximum mana. So a bigger pool means a bigger bar takes longer to fill, taking longer to fill means fewer overflows, and fewer overflows means fewer recoup instances landing on you, all while Demonflame keeps stacking every single second, completely indifferent to what your gear is doing. Bottom line is, there was never a damage cap on this build. There was a sustain cap, and every one of us, me very much included, mistook one for the other. So I rerolled the mana off my staff, swapped out my ring, and lo and behold, I got my pool well under 700. And now here comes the one thing I genuinely cannot fix for you. The mana bonus from the campaign is permanent, and there ain't nothing you can do about it once you've already taken it. So when you're creating a fresh witch for this build, and the game offers you free maximum mana, you keep walking, chief. Do not repeat my mistake. Now fixing that leak was only half the story, cause the skill I was casting at the time was never going to keep up either. See, I started this character on Essence Drain and Contagion, cause that's my comfort setup on pretty much any witch character I roll. Beautiful skills, genuinely love them, and completely useless here for the exact same reason they are good everywhere else. You cast Contagion, then Essence Drain once, then you walk away while everything melts behind you. That is the entire design of that combo. And you would think reducing the cost of those skills will help me squeeze more casts out of the same bar, right? Well, that is exactly backwards, my guy. Because on this character, your skill cost is the payment you actually want. The truth is, the more expensive your skill is to cast, the faster it fills your Infernal Flame, the faster that bar fills up by stacking cast speed everywhere you can, the more often you overflow, then the more often you overflow, the more recoup instances you proc in, paying that Demonflame rent I keep banging your ears about. So Essence Drain and Contagion were the worst skill combo for this build, because not only do they cost less to cast, but you can even spam them quickly enough to save your life. Which is why we pivot to Despair, and when you pair this thing with Focus Curse, it substantially raises your skill cost by 120% skill cost multiplier. Then when you pair this thing with Overzealous on the passive tree, which increases your skill cost even more, one cast of Despair is enough to almost overflow your Infernal Flame bar. And we don't stop there, my friend. By using a Heroic Tragedy Timeless Jewel, which changes the behavior of most passive nodes in range, we can turn a node like Chaos Inoculation into Nightly Tenet, which stops your intelligence from giving you extra mana and turns that intelligence into evasion scaling instead. Oh, but you thought we were done reducing our mana pool? Nah-uh. Vulgar Metals on a Megalomaniac Jewel hands you 10% reduced maximum mana. Melding on a passive tree gives you another 10. Then Hail Heart on our amulet ensures our life recovery is well maintained. And once you got all these pieces spinning properly, one press of that Despair button does something completely bananas. There is a support gem in this build that most people throw in the dumpster the minute they read what it does. Doedre's Undoing. This gem takes Despair and completely changes what the skill even is. See, instead of Despair slapping a curse onto a target like everything else, it becomes a cursed ground that you drop on the floor, meaning anything that walks in it is automatically cursed and you are limited to 2 active curse areas at one time. Now on paper, that limit reads like a downside to the item, but in reality, it is the entire reason this build even works. Because when you pair Despair with Spell Cascade, every single cast creates 3 areas instead of 1. Then whenever you cast a new Despair, the newest curse area overrides the old one, which is exactly where Impending Doom shows up to the party. It grants you Doom Blast, and the chaos damage from Doom Blast pops up the moment the supported curse ends. Now, as I previously mentioned, every new cast of Despair overrides the old curse area, and interestingly enough, a curse area being overridden by a new one counts as an ending to the previous curse. So every time you press Despair past the limit, you are manufacturing curse expirations on purpose, and every single curse area that expires triggers Doom Blast for a massive chaos explosion. Oh, but you thought that was it? Nah, bruh. Every one of those cursed ground areas also spits out these little guys thanks to Doedre's Undoing, and they will happily jump on the closest thing and explode on contact without ever asking for a single thing in return. So watch the screen while I tell you what one button press actually looks like. You cast once, and your entire screen is covered in cursed grounds that turn into Doom Blast explosions whenever you cast again, and all you have to do is keep casting away without spending mana while everything dies. I mean, most of these guys never even get to make a move on you because of temporal chains, which is suckering into blasphemy, making sure they are slow to a halt. So your only job at this point is to cast, fly forward, and everything just dies behind you. Oh, and in case you're wondering where all the extra explosions and my Plague Mummy clones are coming from, that is all thanks to the Trickster's Shard. This beautiful little thing slotting into Despair creates up to 4 clones of yourself that all cast Despair for 50% less damage before they disappear. This reduced damage doesn't apply to your own cast of Despair though, so while mapping, you keep your own Despair at full damage effect, while the clones just stack extra cursed ground coverage on top, turning the floor into an absolute mess. Now that is Plague Mummy at a comfortable stack count, but let me show you just what happens when you stop being careful and just let her cook. There is a moment in every expedition I ever ran before where I will normally start doing some math. The waves are usually getting fatter, every single red is stacking modifiers on top of each other, and I'm usually quietly working out whether my damage still holds for another 2 minutes, or whether I'm about to lose the whole logbook and walk home with nothing. That math does not exist on this character, my dude. Because remember what Demonflame is actually doing this whole time. Every second you stay in demon form, Plague Mummy is getting another stack, and every stack is another 3% more damage pile on top of the last one. So the longer the expedition drags on, the curvier Plague Mummy gets. Meaning the harder those waves come at you, the harder you hit him back by the time they arrive. The content difficulty ramps up, and you just ramp up faster. Those flying fellas that normally box you in and beat you to death while you panic dodge, they get slow to a crawl and melt before they take a single step. Then you just maneuver around them while casting away without a care in the world. And don't even get me started on getting to a boss while mapping a high Demonflame stacks like my boy Zecht over here. They simply do not get a turn. That is what an uncapped multiplier on Plague Mummy looks like when your life recovery finally keeps pace with it. So now let me show you how to properly build her. If you've been following along so far, well, here's the good news. You've already met most of the shopping list for this build. Our ascendancy order is Demonic Possession, Pyromantic Pact, Master Darkness, then Loyal Hellhound. The first three nodes are Plague Mummy herself, and the Hellhound is our personal bodyguard that soaks up 10% of the incoming hit damage before you do, but most importantly, that damage soaked up by the Hound is fed back to you as Recoup at 200%, thanks to Romina's Requital. Sacrosanctum is still the one piece in this entire build with no substitute. Up to 20% Recoup, another 15% if you get one with a corrupted mod like I did, and that life to energy shield Recoup is what everything else is leaning on. Heroic Tragedy, and the Megalomaniac are taking care of cutting our mana pool, so what is actually left is our lifeblood, our weapon, and our neck. Blood of the Warrior is a criminally underrated life flask for this build. We don't really give a damn about the rage effect, but it gives us Recoup while it's active, which can not only save you in a pinch when you're running low on Recoup, but it's also how you can sustain high Demonflame stacks without falling off or killing yourself. Now most spellcaster builds out there will use a wand and a focus, but in my case, I picked up a charming staff with some absolutely disgusting rolls. I'm talking a shit ton of skill levels, Unga Bunga spell damage, increased cast speed, extra chaos damage on top, and Demon Form doesn't disable your weapon while you transform, so every single one of those lines take glue to Plague Mummy while transformed. Then our amulet is carrying another +4 to all spell skills, more cast speed, and some Recoup sitting right alongside the Hailheart Anoint I spoke of previously. Now here's why those skill levels matter way more than they look. See, between the staff and the amulet, a level 21 Despair is actually running around level 33, and Doom Blast follows the level of the curse is supporting, so every single one of those explosions covering your screen is scaling off a level 33 curse, bro. And that's even before the damage multiplier from the Demonflame starts kick in. Now before you go look at my belt slot and click off the video, yes, that's a Mage Blood, and no, you absolutely do not need it. I was running a rare belt for the longest time, and it worked perfectly fine for me. The Mage Blood is a luxury I indulge myself in for movement speed, and a bit of consecrated ground to patch me up when I get lazy, or get around 300 Demonflame stacks. Your budget version is any double resistance belt, which you can use a perfect essence of insulation on it, and guarantee yourself a fire damage taken as Recoup, and that is seriously all you need out of that slot. Then there is a crew that clocks in while you're busy holding down one button. Blasphemy is cursing enemies around you 24/7, and we socket temporal chains into it, which slows everything to a halt while you blast them. Another very important aura with stacking is Withering Presence. This thing applies Wither on anything in your presence, which actively increases the damage they take by up to 50%. Add Despair on top, which is already shredding enemies' chaos resistances, and you see just how ridiculous this gets. Dark Effigies are your on-demand little turret that keep blasting anything that is affected by a chaos damage over time effect. Now Despair does not inflict any chaos damage over time by itself, so this is where we invite Contagion, which spreads the plague around, and the reason why the most dangerous packs in expeditions vanish before they get a move in. You also use it in your boss rotation, which we'll get to in a second, to ensure constant Dark Effigy uptime while you focus on melting with a single button. And to maximize the efficiency of these supporting casts, we throw Dark Effigy and Despair on weapon set 1 to ensure they scale beautifully with our chaos damage, while weapon set 2 goes on Contagion to ensure it keeps tanky targets affected long enough to burst them down with Despair and Dark Effigy. Full passive 3, Jewels, and Gem links are all sitting in the Mobalytics guide, cause trust me man, you don't want me reading entire passive nodes and gems out loud to you while the video has already gone on for long enough. What I do need to walk you through though, is how you effectively peel out Plague Mummy, cause this is probably where she ends people's careers. Here is the part nobody tells you about one button mapping build. Yes, it's genuinely brain dead to play, but that one button is not a suggestion in this build. You do not hold it down when things get spicy and let it go when the screen is clear, my guy. You keep pressing it like your life depends on it. Because remember what Recoup actually is. It's recovery handed back to you over 8 seconds, meaning it's eventually going to run dry. And Demonflame does not care if you stop to sniff a rare or admire the loot on the floor. It keeps stacking the entire time. So the thing that actually kills people is never the big fight itself. It's the 4 or 5 seconds after it, when you stop casting to loot and your recovery quietly ran out, while your rank kept climbing and something throws a rock your way. So you cast while you loot, you cast while you move, and you only ever cluster your cast in one spot for bosses, because too many Despair cards stacked on top of each other in one place will send your frame rates down the drain, and that cool new Despair MTX makes everything noticeably worse. Now here is one mistake I need you to never make. Do not try to put a second curse in Blasphemy. See, we only get 2 curses running at the same time in this build, thanks to the Whispers of Doom passive node. Now Despair and Temporal Chains are already occupying those slots, so the second you add another curse into Blasphemy on top of Temporal Chains, one of your curses silently stops applying altogether and the game does not tell you which. Best case, you quietly lose damage for an entire map, or worst case, you lose the run. Now for boss fights specifically, you have to prime Recoup first and bank your stacks before you ever walk into the arena, because Plague Mummy's damage at low Demonflame stacks is genuinely unimpressive, and you really do not want to be discovering that in the middle of a pinnacle fight. This is not something you worry about for map bosses, because you're already gonna be at high Demonflame stacks before you reach them, but for pinnacle fights like the Arbiter of Ash or any of the League Mechanic bosses, you definitely need to stack at a minimum 50 to 100 Demonflame stacks before engaging them if you don't want to run for your life the entire fight. Then you drop your Sigil of Power, which is coming from our Charming Staff, to give yourself a little power boost. You drop your Dark Effigies while the boss is still talking, and as soon as the boss engages you, you drop Contagion on him, which activates your Dark Effigy totems. Now all you gotta do is park the boss inside your Temporal Chains on your Withering Presence, and hold down Despair while your Cascade areas overlap on top of him. And keep an eye on that Demonflame stack counter, yeah? When you are creeping up to a point where your recovery starts struggling, especially around 300 Demonflame stack mark, you need to drop the form manually and use your second charge to come right back into the fight. Otherwise, any damage you take while you're low on recovery will drop you dead in no time, and losing the damage multiplier on purpose beats losing an expensive map on accident. The one fight in this entire game that plays by completely different rules is our friend the Arbiter of Divinity, not because we lack the damage, but because of his stupid opening cutscene that rips you clean out of demon form no matter what you do. So you are pretty much walking into that fight with 0 stacks and ramping up your damage while he's already swinging at you. This is not a hard fight if you ever fought him before, just the one fight where you have to keep your head on your shoulders while your damage catches up to him. Now let me tell you what will literally delete Plague Mummy, because he's not a boss. The one thing that will delete this character faster than any white mob would is a simple one-line affix sitting right on top of your maps. Players have less life recovery, straight up a death sentence for Plague Mummy. With this thing active on your map, your Recoup cannot keep pace with a rain that never stops climbing, so you are running on a timer from the second you enter, and the moment anything so much as breathes on you while you have no recovery, you are face down in no time. Let's cooldown recovery sit right behind it, cause Impending Doom has an internal cooldown of 0.15 seconds, and having any sort of cooldown reduction penalty means not only your Doom Blast recharges slower, which means less frequent procs, but it takes you longer to get back into demon form as well if you ever drop out. So this is a one build where you have to read every single affix on your map before you slot it in. And it's annoying, I know. But once it becomes a second habit, this genuinely makes the difference between you walking away from a map with a full stash or losing that very expensive map you didn't even get to collect from. And speaking of maps, keep an eye on the unexpected missions note from Jado, cause that thing is highly recommended to juice up your maps, but on this build, it can actually hand you one of those exact mobs at random after you've already committed to the map thinking nothing was wrong with it. Same story with your resistances. On any other build, you can get by with a few resistance points missing here and there, but with Plague Mummy, you are constantly lighting yourself on fire and proccing Ignite consistently, which means if your resistances are not capped, especially your Chaos resistance, well, get ready to stare at this death message for a very long time. And Plague Mummy is not a league starter, my guy. Every single piece of this build except the Mage Blood has to come online at the same time. Any missing piece stutters your Recoup, and without Recoup, this sexy mama falls apart in your hands, bro. So where does this realistically leave us? This build is for the guy who likes to understand what he's playing. The guy who wants a one button build precisely because he knows exactly what makes that one button work and exactly how to adapt when that button breaks on him. If you just want to hold right click and switch your brain off, this is not your girl, bro. And I would rather tell you right now than have you burn 2 weeks finding out. As usual, I prepared a field manual PDF to help you navigate your own Plague Mummy journey, and if you need help troubleshooting your own version, swing by the dojo, my guy. That's where that happens. And if you enjoyed this video, go watch what happened when I took a completely different witch and made her one-shot things instead of outlasting them. Same class, opposite philosophy. This build wins by refusing to die, while the other wins by making sure nothing gets a second chance. Until I see you in the Atlas plaguing everything with your own mummy, hopefully with Demonflame still uncapped. Stay stylish, stay untouchable, and may your crits always be juicy.
Here with you.